This is AP News Minute. Prosecutors say video shows an armed man trying to storm the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Federal prosecutors released the video from inside the Washington Hilton on Thursday. Cole Thomas Allen is charged with the attempted assassination of President Donald Trump. Louisiana's governor suspended the state's congressional primaries just days before early voting was to begin. He is giving state lawmakers time to draw new House districts after the Supreme Court struck down a majority black district. Republicans in Congress say they will defer to President Trump on the Iran war. This is despite a War Powers Act deadline for Congress to declare war or authorize the use of force by May 1st. Tacoma, Washington police say a high school student injured 4 other students and an adult security guard in a stabbing attack. The suspect was also injured and was booked on 5 counts of first-degree assault.
So when I think about what this means for this role, what this means for the people that I represent, it can be a stark reminder that it took us almost 80 years to get representation on this board, and then in one swoop, the Supreme Court may take that representation away from Black Louisianians based off of their decision. But what this means, though, is seats at our city council, seats on our police jury and parish council, seats on school boards, seats in the judiciary are all at jeopardy because majority of the seats that anybody who is black holds in Louisiana are an opportunity district created to comply with the Voting Rights Act.
Yes, that we depend on.
The length they are going to ensure that by trying to suspend a already happening election showcases that this is just the start of the draconian policies that they will push. I think this is a real dark period in our state, in our country's history. We are not post-racial. We have never been post-racial. And what we are seeing is the remnants of that. We see with Jeff Landry, Donald Trump, and Liz Murrill, and they pretty much have brought Jim Crow back to life.
Redistricting is simply the process of drawing political district boundaries for a state legislature, a city council, or the U.S. House of Representatives. Gerrymandering is a more negative term where the lawmakers doing that redistricting very deliberately manipulate the lines for a particular result. They might consider race, they might consider partisanship, they might consider the overlap there. They use party registration, voting histories of certain precincts, and it becomes a process described as politicians picking their voters rather than voters picking their politicians. Redistricting occurs at the federal level every 10 years after the census. That's been going on from the beginning of the constitutional republic. Gerrymandering has gotten more and more sophisticated in the era of data and computers because politicians have access to this data to make it so much easier to pick voters and construct districts that reach desired results. Another element since the Voting Rights Act was passed is what some conservatives might call gerrymandering, but what Democrats and civil rights activists say is simply fulfilling what the old version of the Voting Rights Act called for, which was to strengthen minority voting populations' power at the polls. So that sometimes resulted in districts that might have that odd gerrymandered looking shape, but had been drawn in what was in line with the Voting Rights Act before the Supreme Court effectively gutted Section 2 of that law in its decision Wednesday.
I mean, Iran is dying to make a deal.
A bold claim by President Donald Trump. He insists Tehran wants to make a deal, quote, badly. But Iran Supreme Leader Mujtaba Khamenei reiterated hardline demands in a new statement.
I think what's concerning is that the United States believes that Iran can still succumb to its demands.
Thursday, the Senate once again rejected a measure aimed at restricting Trump's war powers for any future military action in Iran.
The motion is not agreed to.
The War Powers resolution puts a 60-day clock on the use of military force without congressional authorization. Lawmakers say the deadline is Friday. But Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, while testifying before the Senate Armed Services Committee Thursday, argued the Trump administration doesn't need approval from Congress to continue the war.
Is the president intending to either seek congressional authorization for the war in Iran or send us the legally required certification that he needs an additional 30 days to remove U.S. forces from the war?
We are in a ceasefire right now, which our understanding means the 60-day clock pauses or stops in a ceasefire.
Meanwhile, with the Strait of Hormuz effectively shut down, oil and gas prices continue to surge. The average price for a gallon of gas in the U.S. hit $4.30, the highest price in nearly 4 years, according to AAA. I'm Sherelle Hubbard reporting.
There were more fireworks and name-calling than substance about the war strategy and cost, the Pentagon chief clashing again with Democratic lawmakers as he and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs defended their historic $1.5 trillion budget request, a 40% increase from last year.
So the question I would ask to you and to others is, what is the cost of a nuclear-armed Iran? What is the cost to the American people if the world's most dangerous regime has a nuclear weapon?
But the truth is, they don't want war coming to this shore. There's no evidence that we are safer because of this war. We did not have any evidence that Iran intended to imminently attack this country in any way, shape, or form.
Much of the discussion had already occurred in a closed classified briefing.
There's no question that Vladimir Putin's Russia is taking serious action to undermine our efforts for success in Iran. Is there any question about that?
I think there's actions and activities that are mindful of the hearing room we're in, but there's definitely some action there.
There was just one question on the Strait of Hormuz.
General Kane, can you tell us the status of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps' Navy, the entity actively closing the strait?
I won't get into any classified materials, but the smaller, fast, and smaller boats, Boston whaler-sized boats, there's still some out there.
Friday marks the deadline for Congress to authorize the use of force, or for the White House to ask for a 30-day extension under the War Powers Act of 1973. But House Speaker Mike Johnson says this is not a war. In Washington, Jennifer Griffin, Fox News.
Most of the day is going to be relatively quiet, though a noted increase in the amount of cloud cover, once again very similar to what we saw yesterday. But we are going to begin to see a little bit of rain develop across the Tennessee Valley as we head into the later part of the evening, early into the overnight. This is going to be a very low impact rain. Much of the rain is going to occur late tonight and then early tomorrow morning. Good Friday morning to you. I'm Fox 54 Weather Impact Chief Meteorologist Jordan Dressman. If you're going out for dinner this evening, maybe a couple of passing showers across the Tennessee Valley, but the real opportunity for widespread rain is not going to move in until we get to the later part of the overnight and then again through the earliest hours of your Saturday morning. And even this, I think Futurecast is probably overdoing the coverage just a little bit. The one thing I do agree with, though, is that the heaviest precipitation is definitely going to exist south of the Tennessee River. Now, the rain is not going to last too terribly long unless you're going out early Saturday morning. Not really going to have an impact on your overall weekend as a whole. Maybe a couple of light showers as we head into the early part of the afternoon, but honestly, that's going to be about it. Other than that, we are going to be dry. Rainfall totals on the lower end of the spectrum, not really looking at much in the way of anything up across southern Middle Tennessee. Again, I told you, I thought the Futurecast model showing the rain was overdoing the coverage a little bit, and then higher rainfall totals hanging out south of the Tennessee River. Let's talk about temperatures heading out the door this morning. Grab a jacket. I think you're going to need it. 51 right away at 7 a.m. Make sure the kids have one too. 55 at 8, 57 by 9, 63 degrees by the time we get to 10 o'clock in the morning. Today is going to be very similar to what we saw yesterday in the temperature department. Highs only climbing into the upper 60s and lower 70s. The average high temperature for this May 1st, by the way, happy May, right around 78 or 79 degrees. Nowhere near that this evening. 68 at 6, 66 at 7, 63 at 8, 61 degrees by the time we get to 9 o'clock. Again, a passing shower is possible with more widespread rain developing across the area as we head into the overnight. Temperatures dropping into the mid and upper 40s. As we head into the front half of the weekend, we are going to be cool once again. Temperatures only climbing into the mid and upper 60s. We're going to stick with the mid and upper 60s as we head into your Sunday as well. So look at this, 68 today, 66 tomorrow, 67 on Sunday. We're going to start Sunday off in the lower 40s, but then plenty of sunshine Sunday afternoon, so not a bad day. We do get back into the 70s for next week, but even those numbers are going to be below average. 75 on Monday, 77 Tuesday, 75 Wednesday, 74 degrees by the time we get to next Thursday.
The cost of gas in the U.S. hits a high not seen in almost half a decade.
I used to fill it up at 60, 80 bucks. Now I'm looking at between 130, 150.
After sliding down slightly for nearly 2 weeks earlier this month, the national average shot up almost 30 cents over the past few days, according to AAA.
People are suffering, that's for sure. I get a lot of people coming in, with $5 or $10, and that's all they can afford.
These increases are especially tough for workers who use their vehicles to get products from point A to point B.
We try to strategize our deliveries to make sure that we're planning efficient routes and not doubling back on things so we can be as efficient as possible. But yeah, it obviously costs more to fill up the tank every time.
Some Americans are trying to save money by taking public transportation.
When fuel prices go up, we see more people taking transit because it's the most affordable way to get to where they need to go.
On Thursday, President Donald Trump said gas prices will fall once the war with Iran is over.
It'll drop like a rock. There's so much of it. It's all over the place, sitting all over the oceans of the world. And it'll go down.
But in the meantime, commuters will have to deal with paying more at the pump.
Gas is not a nice to have, it's a need to have.
I'm John Lawrence reporting.
Every first day of May, streets and cities around the world are filled with marches, rallies, and people carrying signs recognizing International Workers' Day, also known as May Day. But what exactly is May Day, and when did it begin? The roots of the holiday can be traced back to over a century ago to 1886, when the Knights of Labor, the largest workers' union in the US, called for a nationwide strike starting on May 1st. The goal? To secure an 8-hour workday, especially for factory workers.
This had been a long-standing demand for workers who often worked 10, 12, even 14 hours a day on the job.
4 days into the strike, a group of workers called for a rally in Haymarket Square, on Chicago's west side. By around 10 o'clock that evening, a line of policemen was approaching what was left of the gathering.
And as they were moving down the street in this line of policemen, somebody threw a bomb, homemade bomb, into the line of policemen.
The chaotic violence which ensued afterwards killed 7 policemen and 4 people in the crowd. 8 strike leaders were convicted and 4 were sentenced to be hanged.
And it was 2 years after that event that then the kind of international socialist movement, which was a very, very important movement in the late 19th century across the industrial world, declared May Day as a day of worker solidarity and action in memory of what had happened in the Haymarket crisis in Chicago.
With labor and immigrant rights historically intertwined, the focus of modern May Day rallies have an added element.
Let's do it! Let's transform the country!
In the United States today, there is a really dramatic mounting concern, not simply in organized labor, but with millions and millions of Americans, about the breadth of American inequality. But that core principle is the very definition of a labor movement, that you have obligations to each other.